Welcome back to Enjoying the Word, and we are in the early stages of the study process. Here's the study process. We're in this part right at the beginning, the look. We're looking at the passage to see what's there. And so one of the questions that we could use to kind of drive our looking as we look to see what the text says is the question, when? Are there any time references in the passage? Are there any kind of calendar references? Is there a certain festival? Is there a time of year or a specific year? There's all sorts of whens that could be mentioned. There are also some that are more subtle, some that may be there in terms of the tense of how it is written. Okay, so if something seems to be flowing and all of a sudden there's a reference to the past or a reference to the future, you want to notice anything to do with time in the passage you're looking at is going to be helpful. So let's go back to our passage. We're looking at John 12. We've gone through this in the previous video, looking at who is in the passage. Now let's notice some time references. Verse 12, the next day. Okay, so we've got a previous story in verses 1 to 11. You can read that, and this is right in there on the back of it, the next day. This is the weekend before the first Easter, so the days are kind of significant now. The next day, the large crowd that had come to the feast, so they had come already, heard Jesus was coming. So they took palm branches and they went out and they cried and shouted out, blessed is he who comes, kind of a present tense, coming in the name of the Lord, even the King of Israel. This is a big cry. So Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it, just as it is written already, not just as it was being written, but this is a past, something that has been written, right? Here's a quote from the Old Testament that's looking forward. Notice, your king is coming, sitting on a donkey's colt. So it's looking forward and describing. 16, his disciples did not understand these things at first, that is, at that time. But later, we could add the word later, when Jesus was glorified, so later on, after the events of Easter, then they remembered, they looked back. Okay, so you got the backwards look. They remembered that these things had been written about him and had been done to him. There's another interesting tense here in 17, the crowd that had been with him when he called Lazarus out of the tomb. So looking back, in this case, a few weeks to the event of the raising of Lazarus from the dead, there was a crowd that had been there then. Okay, and then verse 18, the crowd went to meet him. This is probably the Jerusalem crowd when they heard, the reason was they'd heard that he had done this sign. And so the Pharisees say to one another, you're gaining nothing. The world has gone after him. It's happening before our eyes that this movement is taking place. So we've got all sorts of time references kind of mixed in together here. We've got different tenses. We've got specific timing references, the next day. We've got references into the past and past references looking to the future, and just getting a sensitivity for any time tense elements of a passage will just help you to notice what it says. Remember, the point of the look stage is not to make sense of it all. It is to see what is actually there. And so often we can just skim over passages, especially familiar ones like this one. We can skim over them because, I know this. When you look closely, you start to notice things. And the more you notice, the more you see what the text says, the easier it will be to make sense of what the text means. So, thanks for watching. Join us next time. We'll still stay in the look phase and we'll ask another question just to help us probe the text some more to see what the passage is saying.